Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a single day's worth of news, July 16th, 2025, to see what was really shaping the world. You sent us a fascinating collection of sources, news reports from around the globe, and let me tell you, it was, well, a day of extremes. Our mission here is to give you a shortcut, to being well informed about the critical moments of this particular day. We'll touch on global politics, technological shifts, environmental challenges, and, yeah, even some inspiring human stories. Think of it as distilling the chaos of the news cycle into some crystal clear insights.
And what's particularly striking about this snapshot in time, I think, is how interconnected many of these seemingly disparate events truly are. We'll try to explore the underlying patterns and the deeper why it matters behind each significant story, help connect the dots you might not see at first glance.
All right, let's jump right in then. Looking at July 16th, it really feels like global stability was on incredibly shaky ground, especially when you consider the volatility in geopolitical hotspots and the shadow of cybersecurity.
That's certainly one of the dominant themes from your sources, yeah. On July 16th, Israeli forces launched airstrikes targeting the Syrian presidential palace and general staff headquarters in Damascus. And this wasn't an isolated incident. National security sources immediately linked it to Israel's ongoing concerns about Iran's deeper entrenchment in Syria and, well, their alleged weapon transfers to Hezbollah.
Right, and Syrian state media confirmed significant damage to those key military buildings, plus reports of casualties, although the scale remained unverified. Diplomats quickly voiced growing concerns about potential spillovers, maybe into Lebanon, and how Iran might react, warning that this could fundamentally undermine any fragile ceasefires that were in place.
Exactly. And speaking of ceasefires, a cautious development did emerge around July 16th. Druze community leaders and Syrian authorities declared a renewed ceasefire agreement directly following those recent Israeli airstrikes. Now, this development is, steeped in the complex sectarian dimensions and foreign interventions that really define the Syrian civil war.
So on one hand, a moment of respite, maybe. But given the complexities you just outlined, how much of this new ceasefire is a genuine attempt at peace and how much is simply, tactical repositioning by the different factions involved?
Well, that's a critical distinction. While international actors, cautiously welcomed it, experts are wary, very wary. The underlying currents of the Syrian conflict, Iran's strategic positioning, Hezbollah's evolving role, Western powers' shifting engagement, it suggests this isn't a true peace treaty, perhaps more of a tactical pause, like you said. The real question is, who gains the most from this temporary calm, and what's their next strategic move? And to complicate Israel's position even further, on that very same day, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition government faced a critical blow. A principal coalition partner announced its departure.
Wow, that's a huge domestic tremor. What were the deeper roots of that fracture, and what does it mean for Israel's ability to navigate these regional tensions?
Yeah, it marks a really turbulent political moment, rooted in long-standing ideological rifts and deep disagreements over both domestic and foreign policy, including their approach to the Palestinian conflict, of course. This announcement left Netanyahu's administration in a very precarious state, directly threatening its majority in the Knesset. Its implications are significant, yeah. Not just for Israeli internal cohesion, but also for its diplomatic posture regarding regional peace efforts and security cooperation. Regional observers and international partners are certainly expressing concern over potential heightened conflict or, policy paralysis.
Okay. Beyond the immediate hotspots, another silent battle seems to be playing out. The reconfiguration of global economic and political power. And on July 16th, we saw two key examples of how those alliances are shifting with direct implications for trade and security.
Indeed. On July 16th, a Beijing court sentenced a Japanese national to 3 years in prison for espionage. Now, this case follows a series of national security convictions in China, and it's clearly intensifying bilateral tensions between Beijing and Tokyo. While details remain pretty limited, the defendant is accused of collecting sensitive defense and industrial intelligence. Japan's government expressed strong concern, calling the trial opaque, while Chinese officials maintained the prosecution was, well, justified and proportionate.
That's definitely a concerning development for diplomatic relations. And on the economic front, Canada announced new steel tariffs and support initiatives for domestic industries. What's the bigger trade picture here? And what are the potential ripple effects of a move like this?
Well, this move comes amid broader global trade tensions and Canada's efforts to protect its manufacturing jobs. These tariffs are specifically designed as countermeasures against perceived unfair trade practices by major steel exporters, particularly the United States. While Canadian workers largely celebrated the job protection, some economists immediately warned these tariffs could provoke retaliatory actions from other countries and potentially increase consumer costs domestically. The international business community is certainly watching closely for any spillover effects on North American trade relations.
While we're talking about global instability, it's not just the political landscape that's volatile. July 16th also showed us the fragility of the very digital tools we rely on daily. Case in point, OpenAI experienced a major global disruption, affecting ChatGPT, Sora, and GPT API services. This marks the second significant outage in just over a month, right?
That's right. And this isn't just about an outage, it's a stark reminder. As AI becomes this sort of invisible operating system for our economy, a single point of failure, like OpenAI, can create cascading economic ripples. Huge ones. Clients worldwide reported blank interfaces, incomplete responses, login failures. Down detector records showed a sharp spike in errors. OpenAI acknowledged elevated error rates, but, provided no immediate detailed explanation. It forces businesses to rethink their core tech stack dependency. Are we accidentally building a single digital choke point for the world's most innovative companies? That's a fair question.
That is a critical question. And speaking of digital security, unreleased music from pop icon Beyoncé was stolen and leaked on July 16th, right before her planned release. It seems like no corner of our digital lives is truly safe.
Yeah, this incident really underscores the increasing vulnerabilities artists face with digital content storage and the ongoing threat of cybercrime. It disrupted Beyoncé's promotional schedules, sure, but it also triggered broader conversations within the entertainment industry about that delicate balance, between digital innovation and robust security protocols for intellectual property.
Okay, but then, amidst all this doom and gloom almost,
Yeah.
there's this incredible breakthrough from NASA. On July 16th, they released the closest ever images of the sun, taken by the Parker Solar Probe and other space technologies. It's like a push-pull of progress and peril all happening on the exact same day.
It's a remarkable achievement, absolutely. Follows decades of scientific pursuit to better understand solar activity, solar wind, and the space weather that directly affects Earth. Our climate, our technological systems, it all connects. The Parker Solar Probe mission, launched back in 2018, returned unprecedented high-resolution data and imagery by skimming closer to the sun's surface than ever before. The images showcased incredibly detailed features, like solar flares and magnetic field lines. Just stunning stuff.
And it's being hailed as a true game changer for solar physics, right? Enabling better forecasting of solar storms that pose real risks to our power grids and satellites.
That's the hope, yes. This whole collection of events on July 16th, from geopolitical alliances to AI infrastructure and space tech, it truly compels us to ask. As our reliance on these complex systems grows, how do we build resilience and transparency into their very foundations? The recent outages and security breaches, coupled with these geopolitical tensions, serve as stark reminders of how vital that question truly is.
It's easy to get caught up in the human-made crises, the political maneuverings. But July 16th also served as a powerful reminder of Earth's own immense power. Because while we were watching events unfold in Damascus, the ground beneath us, literally, was moving.
That's right. A magnitude 7.3 earthquake hit the Alaska Peninsula at a shallow depth, about 20 kilometers, caused widespread shaking felt by around 1,000 residents nearby Sandpoint. The National Weather Service immediately issued a tsunami warning for South Alaska's Pacific coast, covering regions from Kennedy Entrance to Unimak Pass. While thankfully no immediate casualties or damage were reported, this event starkly underscores Alaska's inherent vulnerability to seismic activity. It's a constant reality there.
And in Iceland, also on July 16th, a volcanic fissure erupted along the Sunnuxskigger crater row. The fissure extended between 700 to 1,000 meters, releasing lava flows heading southeast.
Yeah, this eruption, set amidst the very active geological zone of the Reykjanes Peninsula, follows a period of heightened seismic activity. Icelandic authorities were quick to note no immediate threat to infrastructure or populated areas, which is good news. However, this event provides volcanologists worldwide with valuable real-time insights into the region's dynamic volcanic processes. It really stresses the critical importance of continuous monitoring in these active zones.
Beyond the shaking ground and flowing lava, it really feels like Earth is making its presence felt through extreme weather events, too. Europe, for example, continued to suffer those extreme heat waves on July 16th, following scorching conditions since late May, contributing to an estimated 2,300 plus deaths across multiple countries. Just devastating.
That's correct. Temperatures peaked at an astounding 46.6 degrees C in Mora, Portugal. Governments across Spain, the UK, France. They implemented heat health warnings activity restrictions, even hosepipe bans. In Switzerland, nuclear reactors were temporarily shut down because the river water used for cooling their systems was simply too hot. Authorities are urgently calling for more comprehensive climate adaptation measures, urban cooling initiatives, healthcare system readiness, and experts warn such events will become more frequent, more severe, without decisive climate action.
And it wasn't just Europe struggling with the heat, right? On July 16th, many parts of the U.S. also faced a combination of intense heat waves and threatening storm activity, a trend that's, well, clearly been escalating over recent decades due to global warming.
Exactly. Meteorologists pointed to unusual atmospheric patterns contributing to record-breaking temperatures and increased storm severity. The U.S. National Weather Service issued alerts across multiple starts for heat advisories, potential flooding, the works. The impact included significant health risks for vulnerable populations, immense strain on power grids, all that air conditioning demand, and exacerbated wildfire risks. These events reinvigorated public debates on climate policy, infrastructure resilience, and environmental regulations across the country, as they should.
And just the day before, on July 15th, Typhoon Nari made a rare landfall in Hokkaido, Japan. Its first since 2016, bringing heavy rains and strong winds. The unusual timing of this typhoon certainly raises questions, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The timing triggered immediate questions about changing climate patterns. Meteorologists warning that warming seas might be expanding the traditional typhoon season northward. Japan's Ministry for Environment called for increased focus on disaster mitigation and infrastructure investment, recognizing this as a potential new normal they need to prepare for.
Okay, but amidst all these immense natural forces and climate challenges, it's genuinely inspiring to see how communities, especially indigenous youth, are stepping up with real, actionable solutions.
This is truly a bright spot.
Yeah.
Indigenous youth from tribes globally convene at the mouth of the Klamath River in Oregon. From July 13th to 15th, culminating in a powerful declaration signed on the 15th and widely reported on July 16th, their mission: to pledge to halt dam construction and promote dam removal worldwide, directly inspired by the successful Klamath Dam removals of 2024.
Wow. The Global Klamath River Accord highlights this undamming effort as a model for climate resilience. It's fantastic to see that the movement seems to be gaining traction, prompting policymakers and environmental groups to consider more collaborations.
This truly stands out as a powerful example of how grassroots initiatives can drive significant change, especially those centered on indigenous knowledge and river restoration. If we zoom out a bit, these events, from the seismic shifts to the climate extremes, they underscore the urgent need for both large-scale global mitigation efforts and, crucially, highly localized adaptation strategies. The Climate Accord really shows us the future of that localized leadership, I think.
All right, let's bring it back to the pulse of the U.S. and its intricate mix of national politics, economic forces, and social dynamics that all played out on July 16th.
Okay. A central story was the resurfacing of the Epstein files, involving sensitive documents related to Jeffrey Epstein's criminal network. This immediately sparked heated political debate, intensified by new allegations of criminal complicity by high-profile figures. Former President Donald Trump publicly dismissed the files as a Democrat hoax, stating that Pam Bondi, Florida's Attorney General, could release any credible information but maintained his skepticism.
And that statement, of course, reignited partisan divisions. Democrats calling for full transparency, Republicans largely defending Trump's stance. Beyond the headlines, what's the real impact of something like this on the political landscape, especially, heading into an election?
Oh, it profoundly influences political narratives ahead of upcoming elections. It absolutely does. It intensifies mistrust in both the justice system and political processes across the board. On that same day, President Trump also declared his belief that China will soon begin imposing the death penalty for individuals involved in fentanyl production and trafficking.
He said this publicly, I believe, at the White House during his signing of the Fentanyl Act, expressing renewed optimism about Sino-American cooperation on drug control. What are the key debates surrounding such a severe policy proposal?
Well, advocates for stringent legal measures welcomed the announcement, seeing it as a strong deterrent. However, human rights organizations immediately raised alarms about possible human rights abuses tied to capital punishment, especially if applied without robust legal protections, This policy could influence not only drug markets, but also the complex U.S.-China relations and ongoing debates about balancing public health strategies with punitive legal approaches. It's a tricky balance.
And speaking of policy debates, late on July 15th, the U.S. Senate advanced a resolution to debate President Trump's request to rescind approximately $9 billion. That's a significant amount, including $1.1 billion from public broadcasting like PBS and NPR, and $7.9 billion from foreign aid budgets targeting famine and disease.
Right. The legislation, originally approved in the House, now heads to the Senate Appropriations Committee. A crucial development was Senator Lisa Murkowski moving to block the removal of PEPFAR funds. That's the President's emergency plan for AIDS relief, safeguarding crucial U.S. AIDS relief programs. Supporters claim these cuts would help reduce government waste. Opponents argue they threaten essential public services and weaken critical international aid efforts. Public broadcasting providers and NGOs have voiced significant concerns about potential disruptions to vital scientific programming and global development projects.
And amid all this economic uncertainty, speculation intensified on July 16th about the possibility of the U.S. president dismissing Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. This kind of talk can really shake markets, can't it?
Absolutely. Reports emerged that during a White House meeting, former President Trump entertained the idea of removing Powell, signaling his dissatisfaction with the Fed's approach to interest rates and economic management. While conflicting statements quickly followed from the White House, the very possibility of Powell's removal could profoundly affect investor confidence and the global economy. Economists widely warned of destabilizing markets if such a move were to actually happen.
Okay. Beyond the high-level politics and economic shifts, we also saw significant law enforcement and social justice stories on July 16th, things that have a very direct impact on people's lives.
Yes. On July 16th, U.S. federal prosecutors charged 3 Louisiana police chiefs over their alleged involvement in a decade-long visa fraud scheme. This involved the misuse of their official capacity to fabricate crime reports on immigrants, to fraudulently support visa applications, with payments reportedly as high as $5,000 per case. Formal indictments were announced.
That's just an incredible breach of public trust. How has the public reacted, and what are the calls for going forward?
Well, it provoked widespread outrage, as you'd expect, over the abuse of public trust and the undermining of immigration laws. It immediately sparked calls for broader oversight of local law enforcement agencies and, predictably, heightened scrutiny of immigration enforcement practices. Community leaders and immigrant rights organizations have vocally denounced the scheme. And switching focus to New York, Manhattan prosecutors launched comprehensive actions on July 16th, targeting violent street gangs, specifically Fast Life and Wuski, which have been major contributors to gun violence in Harlem.
This crackdown is clearly viewed as a critical step to restore safety in these communities. But what's the deeper strategy at play here beyond just arrests? Is there more to it?
Well, experts caution that while these prosecutions are necessary, absolutely necessary, they must be paired with robust social programs, addressing underlying issues like poverty, education, employment opportunities, if you want to achieve lasting peace and genuinely reduce gun violence in the long term. So it signals maybe a dual approach that recognizes...
Okay. Diving into the economic news on July 16th, we saw U.S. stock indices edge higher. What were the underlying drivers of that market movement?
The market was supported by robust Q2 earnings from major banks like Bank of America. They reported a $7.1 billion profit, along with strong performances from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. NVIDIA also benefited from renewed export approvals to China, which boosted tech sector optimism. And in the crypto world, Bitcoin surged close to $118,000 following former President Trump's announcement of the Genius Act.
The Genius Act. What exactly does that entail, and why is it impacting crypto so much?
So the Genius Act is a new piece of proposed legislation. It would allow for the issuance of private stablecoins, which are basically cryptocurrencies pegged to a stable asset, like the US dollar usually. Analysts attribute the overall market resilience on July 16th to these strong earnings, though looming policy and trade worries certainly persist in the background. Crypto advocates greeted the Genius Act as a significant boon for the industry, while skeptics warned about increased volatility as the market matures. You know, the usual push and pull.
Interestingly, a growing trend reported on July 16th shows that a majority of American homeowners are eager to sell their properties and move to more affordable regions. What's driving this desire to relocate? And what are the broader implications for our cities and towns?
Yeah, this phenomenon seems directly related to rising urban living costs, property taxes, and the shifting work patterns that emerged post-pandemic. Remote work is a big factor. Realty experts provided data indicating increased listings and buyer interest in suburban and rural areas, driven by that remote work flexibility and, frankly, a desire for a better quality of life for many. This has significant implications for urban economies, potentially affecting their tax bases, economic diversity. While smaller towns could experience growth-related pressures they're maybe not fully prepared for, urban planners and policymakers are certainly being urged to adapt their strategies considering these migration patterns.
And closer to home for many, New York City Mayor Eric Adams recorded a significant fundraising victory. raising $1.5 million since the Democratic primary.
That reflects robust political support, yeah. For more than 1,600 donors, Adams' campaign is clearly capitalizing on his law and order and economic growth platforms amidst a competitive political environment. This financial boost is critical for campaign viability, message amplification. Though political analysts caution, as always, that fundraising success doesn't guarantee election outcomes, it really highlights the complex interplay, doesn't it, between national politics, economic forces, and social dynamics. You have these sweeping policy debates alongside very personal decisions like where people choose to live. It forces us to ask, how do these top-down and bottom-up pressures influence each other in shaping a city or, a nation?
Okay. From the intricate domestic pulse, let's explore global culture, legacy, and maybe humanity's enduring spirit that was evident on July 16th. We saw the UEFA Women's Euro 2025 reach its quarterfinal stage, with powerhouse teams like Norway and Italy battling it out, drawing significant attention.
Yeah, and this isn't just about a game. It's a key moment in the accelerating growth of women's football. The tournament has truly catalyzed growth in viewership, broadcast reach, and investment in the sport. It's huge. Analysts note this increased coverage reflects shifting cultural attitudes, although experts argue that further steps like equal pay and stronger domestic league support remain absolutely critical for sustained growth. Still work to do.
And back in the U.S., Baltimore celebrated its annual Restaurant Week, serving as a significant cultural and economic event aiming to support local businesses and revitalize downtown commerce post-pandemic.
Right. This annual event showcases local culinary talents, draws both residents and tourists, features special menus, promotions highlighting diverse cuisines. It directly stimulates hospitality sectors still recovering from prior economic downturns. That's the goal. Community leaders praised the event for boosting small business revenues and promoting urban vibrancy, though some did raise concerns about affordability and inclusivity of the event for all residents. That's always a consideration.
Meanwhile, over in Dubai, the world's tallest hotel was unveiled on July 16th, surpassing previous records and reinforcing its status as a luxury tourism destination.
This development builds on Dubai's long-standing strategy, doesn't it? Attracting high-end travelers through innovative, often record-breaking infrastructure. Developed by a consortium of international investors and architects, the project was celebrated for its blend of luxury and, interestingly, cutting-edge sustainability features. It's anticipated to significantly boost Dubai's economy through tourism revenues and global attention, symbolizing human achievement in engineering and design. Though critics do raise concerns about the environmental impacts of such mega projects and the socioeconomic divides they can exacerbate.
And then there's this profound moment of historical reckoning. A South Korean court began a high-profile retrial for Kim Jae-gyu, the former KCIA director who assassinated President Park Chung-hee back in 1979.
That's right. This retrial stems from legal efforts to reassess the historical and legal contexts of Park's authoritarian rule. It's a big deal. President Park's daughter and relatives have notably opposed the petition, so there's controversy there. Legal teams and political historians are deeply involved, with the court reviewing decades-old evidence and the geopolitical dynamics of Cold War-era Korea. The case has reignited vigorous public debate over national identity, authoritarian history, democratic values, all of it. Observers are watching very closely, as the outcome could significantly reshape South Korea's historical narrative.
And finally, on a much sadder note, we also saw the tragic passing of Fauja Singh, acclaimed as the world's oldest marathon runner, an inspirational figure who died at 114 following a hit-and-run incident on July 16th.
Such sad news. His running legacy has truly symbolized longevity, health, perseverance, especially within the South Asian community. He set multiple age category marathon records. Just incredible. The accident reportedly occurred in the UK. His death prompted global mourning among sports enthusiasts, activists, public figures, celebrating his immense contributions to athletics and healthy aging. And the tragedy also reignited conversations about pedestrian safety and traffic law enforcement worldwide, underscoring a vital public safety concern.
From the triumphs of sport and engineering to these profound reflections on history and individual legacies, this deep dive really shows us the incredible breadth of human experience compressed into a single day. It reminds us there's always a story to learn from, no matter how small or large it seems.
Yeah, this section truly highlights that beyond the headlines of conflict and crisis, there are these constant movements of human progress, cultural shifts, and the ongoing process of societies grappling with their past and building for their future. It's about how values are reflected in our collective actions, sometimes in grand gestures, sometimes in quiet moments of perseverance.
Wow. What a deep dive into July 16th, 2025. We covered everything From an earthquake in Alaska to AI outages, from geopolitical chess games to the inspiring story of indigenous youth fighting for their rivers, and even the accelerating growth of women's sports. It truly was a day that showed us the world in all its complexity and, yeah, its contradictions.
Indeed. When we connect all these threads, what truly stands out here is the persistent interplay of global forces. Climate change, rapid technological advancement, complex political tensions, alongside deeply human stories of resilience, the ongoing quest for justice, and vibrant cultural expression. Understanding one really requires understanding how it ripples through the others. They're not separate.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Given how interconnected all these events are, from climate patterns affecting typhoons to geopolitical shifts influencing tech supply chains, what if we started viewing news not as separate stories in isolated silos, but as interconnected chapters in one grand, evolving narrative?
And this brings up a critical point for everyone listening. In a world where every local event can have global repercussions, how can you best use this kind of integrated information to not just stay informed, but to actively anticipate and respond to the vast changes unfolding around us? What does being truly well informed actually mean in an age of constant flux? Something to think about.